Good morning, 2025. This is your first home buyer guide to purchasing your property this year. Stay tuned. We're going to give you all the tips. Good morning.
Well,
Right?
look at you guys, the twins.
The twins. Tweedledee and Tweedledum, I reckon.
One finds the property, one finances the property. You've got
There
the
you go.
one-stop shop.
There you
And
go.
what a
There you go.
fresh face you and Lisa.
What's that? Sorry?
What a fresh face. Nice change to have you on. Mark's
Yeah, well, I'm
obviously
going to be
taken
joining. I'm here every Tuesday now, and I got off to a bit of a false start. I hooked my phone up to where we usually pop it into, and the whole thing snapped. I'm so hopeless with technology. So I'm actually sitting here. You should see my setup. It's hysterical. I've got like a book and like a pencil case holder, and I'm just holding my phone on it. But whatever, the show must go on, right, boys?
That's it.
Yeah, show us at the end. We'll keep the viewers watching for a sec. But,
yeah, exactly.
We're talking about the first home buyer, I guess, changes coming into effect from the 1st of July. It's going to be quite a big 12 months for first home buyers. And I know this story gets replayed and replayed and replayed. And to a lot of people, it's just jargon. It's real estate language that no one understands. So we're going to try and simplify things for you this morning, break it down and just talk normal English.
Yeah, I think, first home buyers, there's, always a new era of first home buyers, right? It's like,
yeah,
you get born, you grow up a little bit, then you buy your first home. So there's always a new wave that needs to hear things and what's happening. And as everything else changes, so do the first home buyer incentives. So we can talk
100%.
about
and
national level ones.
And how lucky, I know everyone complains about the escalating cost of prices, property prices and interest rates, but how lucky that these guys get the opportunity to get a little bit of a helping hand from the government. But I've got to say, Zach, working in real estate, I literally had to sit and chat GPT a whole lot of stuff. And my spiel to chat GPT was, can you break this down into easy to understand terms? And I think that's what we need to do today. Break it down for the people so that these guys can understand exactly what's going on with this, with the first home buyer scheme and the new ones that are taking effect in January. So what is it? What is the first home buyer scheme? Let's just talk about that really briefly.
Yeah, so there's FBAS is what it's termed, is the first home buyer assistance scheme in New South Wales. So that's a state-based scheme. And that's incentivising first home buyers around the cost of stamp duty. So at the moment, it's $800,000. You pay zero stamp duty if you're an eligible first home buyer. So there's some eligibility requirements around, must be a citizen, over 18, must be buying as a person, so not a company or a trust, and you mustn't have held property previously. Now, the changes that are coming in, there are some changes that will be offering repeat buyers that stamp duty concession. I think it's around 10 years that they mustn't have owned a property, that they can then again be eligible for that stamp duty exemption. So zero stamp duty will be the cost. So $0 up to $800,000. And then there's a concession up to $1 million.
So we've got a stamp duty table, like a calculator, on the back of our magazine we produce every week. You see it at a lot of the open homes. That's a saving of about $31,000 in stamp duty. So it's a massive leg up, because what happened previously was buyers were taking $31,000 out of their deposit to put that aside for the tax.
Stamp duty is around 4.2% of the property price, right? If you're not eligible for the concession. So it's a big chunk back in the pocket, and it's allowing people to their funds. So
it's huge. But $800,000. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, and I know I'm not because I work in property on the Northern Beaches. $800,000 used to buy you quite a bit. You'd be able to get your foot into the door of an older style 2-bedroom apartment on the Northern Beaches, or you'd be able to buy a really nice, fancy one-bedroom apartment. But things have changed, Billy, haven't they? Like property prices went up. It's not going to buy you a huge amount these days. Is that locked at $800,000?
We've got your concessional rate up to $1 million, where you get part of the concession. However, the closer you get to $1 million, which is now the new norm, median unit price for DY is 950,000. You're not saving a great deal. So that's where the changes are going to hopefully benefit people, because they're going to increase those price caps. But you're right, it doesn't get you a huge amount. And fortunately for homeowners that have already purchased, when the government introduced the no stamp duty under 800,000, it actually helped push property prices up a little bit, because it was giving people those funds back. That's the reality.
Yeah. So what's changing, Zach? There's some new changes coming into play. Is that correct? From the 1st of January 2026?
Yeah, so that's on the national level. So there's the Housing Australia First Home Guarantee Scheme, which is the low deposit scheme. So if you look at it in a sense that you can enter the property market as an eligible first home buyer under a national scheme with as little as 5% deposit, there are price caps associated with that as well. Currently, it's $900,000 in Metro New South Wales, so Newcastle and Sydney,
Wollongong included. So
Wollongong,
kind of as far as
there from the 1st of January 2026, the government is increasing that price cap to $1.5 million. So your deposit then effectively becomes $75,000 as the entry point for that price range. So, I mean, that's going to open up and consider a lot of where the property prices have gone, and maybe capture a little bit more of the first home buyer market that are on different income levels, because the other change in the same scheme that's underneath the price cap is also the income caps. So this financial year and for the rest of the calendar year, the income caps will remain, to the end of this financial year, the income caps will remain at $125,000 and $200,000 if you're applying as a couple. From 1st of July this year, the income caps are eliminated. So if you're on $250,000 as a single, you'll be eligible with a 5% deposit. So
just 5%.
It's so staggering. Yeah, exactly right. So
okay.
Even if you have a 10% deposit, it's meaning that you don't have to save as much, or you can get into the market sooner. So that's going to really capture a lot of the rest of the market for first-time buyers that are above that income.
I've got a question for you, because we do find, particularly in areas like DY, on the Northern Beaches, I do find that a lot of these properties circa, $800,000 to $900,000 are tenanted. And so if I'm a first-time buyer and there's a tenant in the property that I'm purchasing, what happens there? When, say for instance, there's a lease on the property for, another 6 months. What happens there? Because obviously that lease rolls over with the property. But what do I do if I'm a first time buyer and I have to move in?
So you've got the time period that you will need to move in within. So if you settle the property, then 6 months later or 12 months later, you've got to move in with the intent to be there for at least 12 months. So you've got to show that in the first 12 months. So you might move in the 11th month that you've owned it. So that lease can run for another 11 months since you've owned the property.
Okay. Wow.
And then you move in, and I mean, look, it's down to the forms that you fill out, and then you're obviously moving in. You'll have your water bills there, your electricity bills, and your mail going there. So that's obviously the evidence that you'll be having to show that you've moved in there in the required time frame to continue on the incentive scheme.
And that's really helpful, isn't it, Billy? Like, I think you've been in this situation yourself. I think that's quite helpful. If you've got a tenant already in a property, you've purchased it, you're a first-time buyer, I think that's quite fortunate in many ways, because you've got that rent coming in every week, which is helping go towards your mortgage repayments, right? That's a huge help, Billy.
The biggest I think fear for a first home buyer is first of all spending 2 years saving a deposit longer, then going and spending all the money and then having no cash flow to basically go into repayment. So if you can have a tenant help you just with a stepping stone or give you sort of 6 months preparation to moving in, it's the easiest
Yep.
transition into the property, and then set it up as your principal place of residency.
And I think there's also a little bit of consideration from the lenders. One in particular is now considering for an owner-occupied purchase and including for serviceability. So when you do serviceability, it's income-based. It's based on your job, however you're making income. If you need some more servicing and you're buying a 2-bedroom apartment as a first-home buyer, we can use $150 a week as proposed rental income as board.
That's
right.
Say if you get a friend to move in, or you've got someone that's going to move in with you, but they're not going to be on the loan or on the title with you, but they're going to help you pay. So, yeah, there's a couple of things that the banks are doing to help that serviceability case, to help people get into potentially a more suitable asset.
Yeah, genius.
So, guys, the $1 million question: how do people apply? Because we've got a daughter who's 19, and we were just helping her go through it all. But we were making her do a lot of the homework. And I've got to say, you punch in first home buyer scheme into Google, it's not fun. It's not fun. It's very text heavy. What's the best way for And look, I think most parents are wanting their kids to do a lot of this research themselves. How else are they going to learn? But I've got to say, I took a look at it and I was like,
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, look, it's a bit of a minefield for information out there, and I guess the best way that you can apply, it's not like something you apply for prior to looking at property or something like that. It's something that happens at the same time. So typically you get a pre-approval, and for the national scheme, we would lodge that documentation as the broker. We've got the Housing Australia documentation for the low deposit scheme that we'd lodge. And then for the state-based stamp duty scheme, that's a form that you fill out with your solicitor at the point of the property transaction. So prior to settlement, when they're doing all the adjustments for the settlement figures, so your amount that you're contributing to the property, the bank's funds that they're contributing, and then you've got the form that the solicitor will provide you, which is on the state level, the State Recovery Office will nominate you as a first home buyer, therefore it will waive or concede on stamp duty costs. So 2 parts. For the National Low Deposit Scheme, it's through your broker or your bank with the relevant forms at the time of the loan application. And then with your solicitor for the stamp duty waiver.
So the good news is, I'll put this really simple, for a buyer, you don't do any work. You just need to have a good broker and a good solicitor in your corner. And that's why we harp on so much about just building the property team in your corner. And it's actually just about positioning yourself with the good people around you to help that process become a lot easier. I can't vouch enough for the guys that help me. It makes a world of difference when you've got someone good in your corner. So I think it's nice if you can build those relationships 6 to 12 months out before you actually go and purchase. It takes out a lot of that stress, because you've obviously got enough on your mind whilst you're going through open homes and just focusing on trying to buy the right place. You don't need the paperwork hassle. And that's why when you can get a pre-approval and it's valid for 90 days, you might as well say, well, if I'm buying in the middle of the year, I'll set myself up in the first month or 2.
Yeah, exactly. And I think even keeping your finger on the market, like finger on the pulse sort of thing, and speaking to people like yourselves, because there's a lot of first home buyer stock in DY and surrounds, and with the lift in the caps, there's probably going to be a little bit of a bubble. Maybe we'll see a little bit of upward pressure on prices. So actually realizing what your borrowing capacity is, what your funding goal is for your savings, and therefore what your purchase price is, so that you can see what's suitable in your area and you can see what's tracking in the market, and watch what Billy's selling, watch what Billy's got open.
Look, yeah, we'd love to help. And we've done the averages across the price points. They're not impossible to find, but they don't come up that often. These price caps will help that. But we do want to make sure you're onto things quite quickly when the right place comes up. So that's it. Reach out. Let us know if we can help any more. I reckon this is going to be a great first, next 12 months to buy as a first home buyer. And to be honest, we've never seen more help, assistance, and incentives. So you couldn't ask to be better timing, really.
Too right.
Anything else to sign off with?
We can put some of the links in the comments, I guess, for the schemes. And
yeah, indeed. The best website I've seen is the Housing Australia scheme for the federal stuff.
Yep.
And you just put that into Google, Housing Australia, and it'll pop up there.
Nice one.
Have a good day.